I've not used this before, so I'm just trying it out.
Space Commander.
Space Commander. How are we, fellas?
Doing great. Doing fantastic.
Perfect. Well, we're going to have to get you a cadet hat, Brian, I reckon. So you can be a fellow cadet under Space Command. And just for our viewers, I did have a message from a fellow cadet that is still waiting on their hat. Space Commander, I know you're putting that out there already. But I did have a message coming in from Cindy, who had a little bit of an accident recently, but she's doing well. She's back at home and ready to go back and watch some wrestling. So yeah, speedy recovery to Cindy. Hope you're doing better, mate.
I might have a new lead, a new source of hats. So, so hopefully,
good.
Hopefully we'll have some news soon.
Well, if we need a volunteer hat as a stand-in, I also do have the helicopter prop. So, depending on how we go. How many other hats do I have? Gags ready to go. Always got a gag hat ready to go. Ryan, welcome back. This is what, the third time?
Yeah, this is it's becoming a routine here, guys. I feel like I'm part of the show.
Yeah, well, you are now. I was saying to Spaceman, so we never had anyone that wanted to come back more than once.
There we go. Setting new records.
I'm surprised Space Commander ever wants to come back.
It's always great to be back here, guys. Talking Action Force. I love it. So it's favorite topic. The problem is getting me to shut up. That's the hardest.
Relatable. All right, let's say hi to the chat real quick. Cutthroat Comics was here saying, I am game for this stream. I think it would be cool. Not familiar with Brian Hickey? Well, you're going to get familiar. We also do have the link in the description, Brian, for the books. There's a few days left on that, so get in there and pre-order. Well, it's half price, I think. I think that's what we determined it was.
2 books for the price of 3.
That's what I said. 2 books for the price of 3, I said. I remember saying that distinctly. So the link is in the description. 2 books for the price of 3. Ignore everything else I've said before that. Michael's here. Good afternoon. How are you, buddy? And we have Gaz. Woo, let's go. Thumb kiss to Gaz. And TJC is here as well. Due to the time zones, we might have competing streams. He's got his going on as well. And Kenny, good evening, guys and gals. Yeah, Space Commander is on. My favorite show. Thanks
I'm
for
here. I
tuning
don't know
in.
if I'm on.
No, he's here at least. So I got a little bit of a incoming transmission from Mrs. Space Commander saying, might be a little late. Space Commander's in a panic, trying to get some stuff together. I was like, tell him not to stress. It's all fun. But this is the first episode. This idea came from you, Brian, so I blame you for this. But we're doing what Space Commander calls our data file. What's it called? I can't read it behind Brian.
It's the Datafiles Decrypted. Because if you go back to the original Battle Action Force comics,
yes,
they were called data files. They had like fact files about the various characters, and they were called data files. So we're going to unredact them and let the public know who was who in Action Force.
That is a great idea. Between the three of us, I think we're going to have a pretty good show. Everyone knows that I don't put a lot of effort into slides. Like, slides aren't my thing. I'm a very lazy presenter, very lazy host. It's part of my Aussie upbringing. I'm just chill, you know. I'm just relaxed. But I did put together some slides today. Now, first of all, Brian, I need to say the character that I'm showing you today, it's not traditional Action Force. It's after we're looking at the Full Force days. Full Force. But there is some blood for the Baron coming in as well from you fellas. And then also, I hate to say it, I'm going to show a little bit of G.I. Joe. So, don't come at me for it.
G.I. Joe too. So
good. Perfect. All right. So who do we put on the spot? Do we make Space Commander go first because he looks like he's the most out of not ready?
I've got a pile of stuff in front of me and it's in no order at all.
Well, let's throw it to the guests then. Brian, would you like to go first with your slides?
I'll dive in first. And
sorry, Brian.
The first character that so we chose 4 characters that we're going to kind of run through tonight, and the first one I'll kick off with is one of my favorite SAS Force characters, a guy called Quickfire.
Nice.
And here's his data file here. This is printed in the comic. You actually got a brief synopsis of this would have been included on the characters, the action figure card as well. So they pretty much, like, this little blurb here is probably reprinted word for word from what was on his on the packaging art, but it was just the text. There was no other kind of graphic detail or visuals, to support the character. At a quick glance, Hans Jorge Muller, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his middle name correctly. His primary military specialty is commando assault, and his secondary military specialty is hand-to-hand combat. And obviously, he's from Munich in Germany.
Okay, I'm not sure. Like, now, I love this art. Don't get me wrong. This is brilliant stuff. I'm a big fan of it. As Space Commander has taken me down the Action Force rabbit hole, I've come to be a huge fan of the comic book art, and these data files are no exception. However, I'm not sure what he's doing there or what he's firing at. Almost looks like he's fired at himself and he's tripped himself over.
It's a bit of a, the way he's kind of holding the machine gun is a bit strange in that pose. And you find with some of the data file art, because some of these weren't always, most of the time, these were illustrated by artists who didn't do this, the strips.
Oh, right.
G.I. Joe B, that's a good kind of comparison to somebody in the G.I. Joe kind of universe. I think Quickfire and Beachhead are good comparators. But the artist on the file cards, it could have been Jose Gonzalez, or it could have been Carmona. Did this particular file card. Occasionally you get like a heavyweight like Eric Bradbury would do one of the file cards, and then his style would be very, very different. But this does feel, that there's something about the design of the file cards that's just really crazy.
Hmm.
The way
No.
as a graphic designer, I'm looking at this and all the different elements. There's no kind of real grid layout here. It's all cut and paste. So you find that shot there where he's kind of diving and he's shooting at the red shadows in the distance. That is possibly actually a separate piece of artwork that's cut out and pasted onto the artboard, and then the colorist comes in and colors it up, and then another designer is kind of cutting and pasting text and putting that onto the artboard. So like the SAS, it's not even the SAS Force logo that they've used here. It's just a font from the Letraset catalog, and then this big gap between SAS and the text. It's clearly been put together in a hurry. So
the
I
name.
imagine a cut and paste artist in IPC's kind of studios under massive pressure to make the print deadline, and it's just like slap, 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 whoosh, off to the colorist, and away it goes.
That's fair enough. I like the name Hans. We have a friend named Hans, so that's pretty cool. And I wonder if he just used the action figure as the reference for that pose, because you could probably do that pretty easily with the toy.
Well, you see a lot of stuff here. If we go to the next slide, just for
you can actually control the slides if you want to, at your pace, change it to the next one.
I can drive the slides.
Delegated.
So you can see the action figure here. It is kind of size comparison. So we've got, he's got like the Tommy gun. The Tommy gun, whereas he's holding what looks like an AK-47. If we go back to the file card,
oh yes,
it's like a very different. I'm sure somebody in the chat knows exactly what model of rifle that is. It looks like an AK-47 to me, but the character actually comes with that kind of Tommy gun instead.
That's pretty cool.
He's, as you see on the cover of Volume 2. So he's I think the file card artist maybe took some liberties with the actual reference. It's not as exact to the character, whereas the image that's featured on Volume 2 is maybe a more accurate kind of character reference.
Love it. Battle Action Force link is in the description to pre-order. Did you know you can get 3 books for the price of 2?
Yes.
And I've always said that. That's always been what I've said. And I love the look of that. Pulling the pin of a grenade with your teeth has got to be the most badass classic action pose. I love it.
Oh yeah, it's yeah. Well, that's how they rolled back in the 1980s in the comic battle. Everything had to be as badass as possible.
Oh yeah.
But keep rolling here with my kind of quick capsule summary of Quickfire. So he's a pretty serious character. His file card gives us very little information about him, other than that he was just a special kind of commando unit in Germany prior to joining Action Force, and we've his secondary military specialist hand-to-hand combat. But when Jerry Finley Day writes about this character and kind of puts a bit more flesh on the bones, he paints him as this kind of really, really serious guy. And here's a close-up of a panel illustrated by Cam Kennedy, art legend.
It looks great.
So he even holds his steak knife like a bayonet, as in Quickfire holds a steak knife like a bayonet, not Cam Kennedy that I know of. And even a little bit later in this story, we see him use that steak knife to take out a red shadow when they come under attack.
I've seen that scream somewhere before.
Oh yeah, there's a T-shirt coming with that scream on it. So
gotta be. I'll proudly wear one if you get one sorted.
Oh yeah, sort that.
That is another great action shot there. I love that, and you really can see with that what they call the Red Shadow Guard. I like how his elbows coming over the panel, like he's falling through it.
Yes,
that's so good.
And then, if we kind of look a little bit further, into this kind of character, there's also Jerry Finley Day. While he's really serious, he writes, and there's another side to the character. And here's a panel from the story. This is, zooming in on a panel here, from Operation Bloodhound, where the SAS team are kind of stranded off the Galapagos Islands. And Muller strikes up a real friendship with the iguanas, which are native to the island. And we find out, we get a little bit of a kind of a couple of panels backstory on him, where he was involved in a siege at a zoo in Germany. And ever since that particular mission, he's always had this love for reptiles. So we see him here with his kind of iguanas kind of all crowded around him, which is kind of a more of a humorous sort of take on the character than that kind of real serious kind of tough guy. And I think if there was ever going to be a new action figure of Quickfire, I would love to see an iguana accessory and a steak knife accessory.
Yes, agreed. Space Commander, I think you've got a request here, friend.
Okay. Well, I was gonna try and work up to it.
Well, we'll hold you to it then, Gaz. We've got him on a timer. We'll give him a little bit longer before he comes up with his AE.
Let me wet the whistle, as it were.
Yeah.
And then I suppose like a final panel here on Quickfire. Again, keeping with that more kind of comedic element. He's not averse to kind of dressing up as a woman when needs must. So he will go undercover as a man or as a woman, depending on what is right for the mission. And I always think this is in this particular panel here, this is a reveal panel where the SAS crew are rescued by a woman in a sports car, and then when you turn the page, you see that the woman is actually Quickfire in a wig. And again, that's just the humor of Jerry Finley Day coming into play.
That is a handsome woman. Speaking of women in the chat, we have Cindy dropping in saying, "I'm still alive and having a good day." That's great, Cindy. We did give you a shout out at the top of the stream, and I just let people know that you were recovering. Hope you're doing well. It's good to see you. And timer has begun, Space Commander. So work your way up to it. I like the humor behind it. I like that it's played for laughs, but I think there would have been many circumstances where people did have to go undercover as a female for whatever reason. Reminds me of what movie was that? Doesn't matter. We'll get back to that. But how often do you ever hear about a siege at a zoo? Now, that is something I would like to read. That definitely sounds new to me. And Joe Fan 84 has dropped in. Joe Fan 84 is actually the number one Joe Fan. The 84 is only for the year, not his ranking on as many Joe Fans there are. Anyway, afternoon, gentlemen. No way. This is early morning for me, mate. I'm at the doc, so I'll catch you all later. What's happening with everybody? They're all going to the doctors. Hopefully, you're all still on after I get out of this place. Well, good luck, buddy. Hope you're doing all right.
Give that man a salute.
Yes, indeed.
That is great art, though. And Ratface 44 reviews here. He's called Ratface, but I'll call him Handsome Man Ratface. If you ever see him in real life, yeah. Anyway, speaking of handsome men, we're back on to the man in the wig. He looks a little bit like either Sergeant Rock or very early Nick Fury. Like it's got that big manly jawline that I'm jealous of.
I'll pick any kind of 80s rock band frontman,
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, something out of. Who's that band that you're into, Space Commander?
How long have you got? I was just thinking, it's interesting because when we saw the data file image earlier, and Brian said that he thought those images were drawn by people who didn't work on the interiors of the comic. I think he's right because of Quickfire. All these guys have this fantastic kind of manly, great big man jaw. You can't hide the man jaw, Men have a great big jaw for crushing meat and bones. Okay, that's what that's all. So, if you look at the data file art, he doesn't have the manly chin yet.
Not yet. He's grown into it.
Yeah,
From the hill.
the-
From the Hill has also dropped in. Sorry to cut you off there. He's only saying hi to me though, so nobody else say hello. No, put your arm down. For me only. And Wilhelm is here saying how did everyone. So everyone gets one there.
Hey.
There we are. Good to see you.
Yeah,
Yeah, sorry, Space Valley. Go ahead.
He's got a bit of chin wobble going on, this guy.
Relatable. Why do you think I grow a beard?
Then when you see how he looks later on in the actual book itself, or on the cover of Brian's book, then we're getting a proper, that's it. Look at that great big man jaw.
There he is. Yeah, he's not even going to spit that pin out. He's going to eat that pin. That's how manly he is.
He's going to eat the whole grenade.
Yeah. Hey, from the Hills also everyone gets a hello now.
Hey.
All right, here's buddy.
He's going to eat the grenade and spit the shrapnel at the enemy.
Oh, that's cool. There's a tagline. Put that on a shirt. All right, I've finished dribbling on now.
I suppose that's our kind of whirlwind kind of introduction to Quickfire. He's a character that if you just look at the data file on its own, there's not a lot of color to the character, but once you start to dive into the stories, you get to see this. There's a real character behind just the military specification that was initially put on the card art.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I like that they give him a little bit of a continuation to that backstory where he was at the zoo with now continuing to like reptiles because of it. I love a follow on, something that sticks. I love that. And I like that he's not afraid to put a wig on for the mission. Good on him.
Didn't Snake Eyes dress up as Boy George in one cartoon episode?
He sure did.
There you go. So the precedent was already set.
With the mask and all. I wonder if it's part of his. We call that a beanie? What do you guys call that? The hat.
The commando hat, beanie,
Beanie, yeah. Maybe the wig was attached to a beanie. It makes it a little bit more palatable for him to do. Here we go. Here's a good question from Cutthroat Comics. I'd like to know this too. Was Action Force part of World War II as far as our comic book or action figures are concerned?
Now there's a
good question. Well, the Action Force stories that ran alongside the World War II stories in the comic were set in the present day. So it would have been whatever the early 1980s. But before the Action Force made its comics debut, the very first iteration of Action Force had some World War II themed characters. So you had a desert rat, you had a German stormtrooper, and there may have been a few others that I just can't think of off the top of my head. But certainly by the time we developed the comics universe, Action Force was a 1980s only era in storytelling. So you had this kind of in battle, you could read Johnny Red, which was, World War II. Then it would jump to, say, it could be Invasion 1984, which was a kind of a contemporary alien invasion story. And then you had Action Force, which was contemporary.
Brian,
sorry
to interrupt, but I was just thinking the World War II figures that you're struggling to think of. Someone wrote this book. Who wrote this book? Who wrote that? Who wrote that? Oh, look inside.
I should have that book memorized. Yeah, memorized.
There we go.
Well, let's see. I can see two: the Desert Rat and the German Stormtrooper. So they're World War II. The Australian Jungle Fighter could be World War II. The American Paratrooper could also be World War II, but it could equally have been, 1980s. And then everything else looks kind of, what would have been, of the time, for the 80s. Maybe the Commando could have been World War II as well. Yeah, the Commando, and that figure is kind of like the base figure for the Quickfire action figure that will come later.
Well, Andrew's dropped in to say hello. Holy crap, midday stream? Nope. Or is it? Nope. It is very early morning for me. in Canada, a beanie is called, how do you say that? A toque? Was that right? Toque?
Nice.
Nice. Yeah, very cool indeed. Very cool indeed. It's good to see a lot of that picture showed me, and this character is in an inclusion in that is that it's very multicultural, very international. Good to see an Aussie in there as well as the Germans, the Brits. All good stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, right from the word go, Action Force was always international. So even before this range of figures with the different teams, even before those characters were introduced, that first wave, immediately you had characters from all around the world.
Yeah, Australia, British, American, German. So and what wasn't released, they even did up like UN. They designed a UN deco for the British Marine, but that particular deco never got released in Series 1.
Oh, okay. What was the character again that you got free with a magazine?
Well, it actually varied. So the one I got was the Z-Force radio operator. That
right. Yes.
But there was all kinds of figures. I think they were just kind of randomly thrown in with the comics.
Oh, there's prop commander. There he is.
There he is. First ever figure. Though none of the I've never heard of anybody getting one of the repainted G.I. Joe figures free in a comic.
Must have been left
or Steel or anything like that. So if somebody did get one of those free in a comic, I would love to hear about that.
Oh, have you seen the Bobby Vala stuff? The Action Force that's come out recently, the 6-inch stuff in comic books.
Well, I haven't seen Bobby's comics, but I have seen some of his figures online, and I saw an amazing diorama from Joe Fest last year featuring his product, which looked fantastic. So I'm not as familiar with Bobby's Action Force. I mean, I'm aware of it. The figures that I've seen look pretty cool. I particularly love the Swarm figures, like the guys with they look like sort of a wasp style kind of mask with the wings. I think they look pretty badass. And a photographer that I follow on Instagram, a guy called Eddie American, he's done some great photos of Bobby's Action Force line, dio photos, and I'd be a huge fan of Eddie's work. So anything that I've seen from him looks pretty amazing. But that's kind of as far as my knowledge goes, other than I know it's Bobby's created his own unique universe. And I think that's pretty awesome.
Well, it'll come to no surprise to anybody watching this that out of the characters that he's brought out, the one that I got was most excited for was Sergeant Slaughter. But that's obvious. That's pretty obvious because I've been a Sarge fan.
Oh yeah.
So this is a detonator, is that right? That's come with him here as an accessory.
That particular figure there, just for scale, is not actually Quickfire. That is, but yes, that is a detonator. I think that actually might be Stakeout. That's in the shot there for scale.
Well, that's good news because we get to talk about Stakeout. What a great segue!
And I'm just realizing. I mean, obviously, this particular graphic, I cobbled this together really quick for a live stream with Chris on the Full Force, weeks and weeks ago.
Oh yes.
And I rushed. I mean, I really should have been on the ball and pushed the Stakeout figure in for size comparison. Sorry, did I say Stakeout? I meant Quickfire figure in there, but as it happens, it's Stakeout.
I think it's
That's all right.
The same figure, different deco. I think.
Do you know what? You're absolutely. I wonder, is the torso exactly the same? I'd have to go digging up there. I'm not going to go digging in the shelves in case I knock everything down live.
If only you had a book. If only there was some book for research purposes.
Well, actually, we might be able to see in the photos from the book if Spacey has that page handy.
You make it sound like I'm organised, and I'm clearly not.
We're just so used to being organised.
Nobody watches this show for organization, mate. They come here to check out your sideburns, and that's it. A little bit of action force and a lot of sideburn.
They have some wicked sideburns, aren't they?
Oh, they are wicked. They're so wicked it stole my wallet. Give it back.
Okay.
Here we go.
All right. I appreciate you laughing at a joke that wasn't funny, but here we go.
Okay, so bottom row.
Yes.
That's Quickfire and the bottom row there, so third from the left. And then Stakeout, he's probably on the
Middle.
There he is there, smack bang in the middle, beside the Cobra officer or hunter, as we know. Yeah, it's hard to tell from those shots, but definitely
that has cleared up nothing for me. Yeah, that has cleared up nothing. Well, Gaz reminds us that the timer is still running, Space Commander.
I'll wait for an appropriate image. Don't worry. Going back to the first one. There, if you look at his trousers, you can see some of the grey.
The grey camo.
That's right.
Yeah. Whereas I think we just have a straight black paint on Stakeout. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
There we go.
Sideburns and action force. Yo, Joe, let's go. Full force. You know what? I was very surprised because Space Commander sent me a box of Action Force figures. And I was very surprised how a little bit of paint and some really clever part swapping, you can't tell on a lot of characters that they are from other characters, particularly the ones that, what was his name? Muton. Right?
Yeah.
You were like, this is a diver. I'm looking at it going, oh yeah, okay, I can see that now. Yeah. And some of the other ones, you're like, if you look at the back, he's got the same. I think it was a canteen on his back end there. I was like, oh yeah, good stuff. Good use of parts. Yeah, Sarge. Cindy's a fan of Sarge too.
Sarge.
She must be a bit behind. She's only just caught up. Yeah, but we haven't forgotten Gaz, and you keep reminding us he's not leaving this stream without an IE. I'll tell you that much.
I love that's just become a thing now. That's
tormenting Space Commander has always been a thing, but we do it with love, though. So, is there anything else that we need to know about this character before we move on to the next? I love it, and I love his commitment to the mission. Very cool and a great looking action figure. Even though we're not looking at him right now, that's a different character.
No, nothing else to add. If you want to find out more about Quickfire, then I recommend Volume 1 of the Battle Action Force Treasury Editions. There's a lot of Quickfire action in Volume 1. So
that sounds like a great plug too, isn't it? Great plug and a great tagline. Quickfire action. Check it out. Book 1. Link is in the description. Did you know right now for a few more days you can get 3 books for the price of 2.
Yes, 3 books for the price. That's an amazing deal.
It is. Oh, and I've got a clip I can do. Go check out the website.
Check it out one time, won't you?
And do your pre-orders. TJC mentioned earlier that he's going to get the books, but he'd have to get them at full price until he can save up some bucks, some dollars, or pounds, or quids, or whatever it is that you guys always forget. I like the word quid.
We've got all 3 here. We got dollary dues.
Yes.
A few quid.
Yeah.
Euros.
Yes.
Actually, we say quid in Ireland as well. So I actually think quid. All currencies should just convert to quid.
I agree.
All over the world, we're sorted.
I'm going to just start doing it now and see if it catches on. See if I can get some Aussies on board.
It'll be cheaper shipping stuff to Australia if we do.
Right. That'll be nice. I'll just move to the UK. That might be cheaper. I'll hang out with you fine folks. All right, so shall we move on to Space Commander? Do you want to jump in with one yet? it might give you an opportunity to get an AE in there, or
I could get an IE in there.
do you want me to go next?
I don't know. I kind of feel. Well, look, everybody. Unfortunately, in preparation for this show, I had no preparation for this show.
You knew about this week ago, like a week at least, or 2 weeks. How long has it been?
About a week or so. But the thing is, you don't understand how things work on the space station. And
Fair enough. All right.
a whole different schedule up here. Okay.
All right, buddy. I'll stop yanking your chain.
So what I've done is I've grabbed a few bits and bobs to talk about my buddy Space Commander. My childhood one was the German variant, bizarrely enough, even though I bought him in the UK. Yeah, he was the German variant. Himmelstürmer.
Didn't have a hat though, did he?
No, I had to get the hat separately because it was. I think it was like one of the when the factory was getting rid of the last of the Palatoy figures and bringing in nothing but Hasbro ones, and a lot of figures got sent out on the wrong card back or without any accessories. But it was okay because you were buying them cheap anyway. But some people were very lucky that they got like a red Jackal figure on a Destro card back and things like that.
Oh, right. Okay.
But yeah, so Space Commander, here's a good one. Signed by Bob. But yeah, you'll see on the back, each one has this little fact file down here. And this tells us that his code name is Sky Raider. When we were little boys, my brothers and I, we just generally went by what was over on the front of the card. So that's why I'm Space Commander, you see. But yeah, on the back of the card, we'll have a little fact file. The fact files were then used in the comic to make the data files. However, in this book, this wonderful book by Brian, I'm going to.
I know that guy.
Oh, wrong way. Here we go. So the fact files have been replicated, and we've got comic book art from Battle Action Force
from Ron Turner. That's a beautiful piece of art by Ron. And in fact, that particular file, all those file cards were expanded on by Paddy. So he took what was on the original data files and then beefed them up a little bit for this particular book.
Yeah, right.
So after the mess I made on the Planet of the Apes live stream, I've managed to put post-it notes in the pages, and I'm still making a mess of it.
Oh, hang on.
So there we go. That's Stakeout. And that was Quickfire I was showing just now. So,
yes,
yeah,
right.
in the book there are more data files, but expanded upon. So before Battle Action Force kind of became the ongoing comic, it originally started out as Battle, and they put in an Action Force kind of strip in the book for a few weeks to see how it went. But they also released these little mini comics. So if you bought a copy if you got a copy of the Eagle, the story of Dan Dare and that sort of thing, you'd get these little books with it.
Mini comic? That looks like a regular size comic. You guys are crazy.
That's a regular size comic to us.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yes.
Yeah. But so there you have this fantastic artwork inside.
Oh yeah, look at that. More beautiful Ron Turner artwork.
Now that's a jawline.
Yeah. So yeah, I'd like to draw your attention to the way Space Commander is drawn in these early issues, because that's an interesting point that's going to come up. But basically, after the initial the first storyline, so yeah, in battle before it was Battle Action Force, it was just Battle, but they did this early story so readers could get a glimpse of what was to come.
Now, I actually have that in my slideshow here. I can zoom in on the exact.
You can show a better version of it.
There he is. That's a zoom in on that.
Right. So just above this image that you're seeing here, it does have an image of the Cosmic Cruiser.
Oh yeah.
But this one it's not the same as the model that was released as an actual toy. This was like one of the prototype ones that were used in early production photographs, and it's got an extra engine at the back on top.
Yeah.
It doesn't have any skis underneath, but you can still see where the axles would go when this was a wheeled vehicle. When this was the AF5, it was like used as a shadow track. They've just taken the wheels off and left it bare. But more importantly, back here is this space station, which was they made one and used it in displays at toy fairs to show off the Space Command, to show off the Space Force figures and spaceships. But it was never released as a toy, sadly. But those guys out there with 3D printers, you can jump on that.
Yeah, we know a few guys.
Going back to the slides, though.
Oops.
There we go. So there is Space Commander Sky Raider from Cincinnati, Ohio. Moved to Texas, moved to Houston because, of course, he became a NASA astronaut. And the interesting thing here is that he went all in on being a Texan. He moved from Cincinnati to Texas, and before you know it, he's wearing a cowboy hat and saying "yeehaw" and stuff like that. And that comes up in this story. But yeah, so
that's cool.
There he is.
Yes. Now I need me a Space Commander cowboy hat.
See, I was thinking that earlier when I was going through these images. I was like, I know what I could do with.
Yeah.
So, So
do Marauder Gunrunners? Do they do like a cowboy hat style accessory, or that might be more like Dime Novel Legends might do that? So that would be a really easy custom figure to create. Sky Raider with his cowboy hat on.
I'm going to ask Adam to 3D print a yellow cowboy hat for Space Commander. I reckon he'd be happy to do it.
He already has, but it's for a Brave Star figure, so it's a much bigger scale. But yeah, he's already done a yellow.
Oh yeah, the Brave Star.
But
so Gaz is just asking real quick if that's a mini Space Commander attack shuttle.
So that actually is a gunnery station on the Space Force space station. So in this particular story, the Red Shadows initially take control of the space station, and then when Space Force retake control of it, Connors jumps into the gun turret and he takes out the Red Shadow spacecraft, which is kind of orbiting right beside the space station.
Right, that's still pretty cool.
It's interesting because of the Red Shadows have basically they've raided the space station. That's why we had to beef up security around here to stop them getting back in. But they ransacked the place. They rounded up. They killed a lot of the guys, but they rounded up like the senior staff. And while they were doing that, there was a bunch of Red Shadows going around helping themselves to the people's personal possessions.
Oh,
including the cowboy hat. Including a flute, believe it or not. And
I don't believe it.
And including a boomerang. Because one of the
unbelievable
was an Aussie. And in the ruckus that erupts later on, when the good guys have figured out what they're going to do, the boomerang gets dropped. Now, I'm assuming that the cowboy hat and the flute also got dropped because we see Space Commander Sky Raider wearing the cowboy hat in the next image. But the boomerang is the most important part because they lob the boomerang into the computer, which is governing the station and sends the station off kilter, thus causing distraction enough for them to retake the station from the Red Shadows. So that just goes to show you sort of like the perspicacious nature of Sky Raider here, Chuck Connors.
Chuck Connors. So Gaz's mind has been blown, saying, "You're telling me Space Commander's from Cincinnati?"
Yep, Cincinnati, Ohio, and then went to Texas, got a cowboy hat, and never looked back.
Sounds like a country song.
I think you could very well be right. So moving on from there, we then have with Battle and subsequently Battle Action Force being primarily war stories. You've got these wonderful stories: Charlie's War, Johnny Red. great stories of World War II. In a way, and also with the Space Force and Q Force, the nautical guys, with their figures coming a little bit later in the schedule, you kind of get the feeling, looking back on it, that they didn't always know exactly what to do with the Space Force characters. So in this here story, codename Skyraider, there he is down there. There were only really a couple of stories that were specifically Space Force. Usually when Space Force show up in the comic book, it's to sort of bolster the ranks of, for example, the SAS. You know, if the SAS need to do a halo jump, they'll do it from the space station. So that's kind of the way that Space Force and Q Force were used throughout the comic, sort of like backing up Z Force and the SAS.
Was outfit cool?
But this is one of the few which was just an out-and-out Space Force story. And again, you've got Chuck Connors looking very big and tough down here, great big jaw. And again, that's pertinent to what I'm talking about. I'll come back to it. But we have this great story where it's a flashback. It's a flashback to his earlier career. I think it's funny. In one of the first pages, he says something like, before I joined Action Force, when I was just an ordinary astronaut. Like there's such a thing as an ordinary astronaut. But so he's telling this story about this adventure he had been involved with years earlier, and it's sort of coming back to haunt him. And actually, haunting is quite a good word, because of they go aboard and they find they find a large container, and as they drag it back from the ship to the good guy's ship to investigate what it is, as they pull it out, you can see it looks exactly like a coffin. So this is like a cryostasis suit, but instead of it being like in the film Alien or Aliens, where it's this nice kind of smooth and futuristic looking, this looks exactly like a coffin.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if that was the artist not getting what the script writer was saying, or maybe it was just some some artistic flourishes there, but it looked exactly like a coffin. So now you've got a ghost story in space.
Well, when I remember reading that as a kid, and when I saw the coffin, that actually kind of, gave me chills, and it made the story kind of spookier than it actually ended up being. But that initial mystery when they pull this coffin, out of whatever debris, it just was like, wow, what's going on here?
Mr. and Mrs. Space Commander Senior are tuning in. We got, welcome to incoming transmission.
Hello, Mum and Dad. I've blown it this week. I haven't got anything prepared properly. It's all over the place. Sorry.
Well, thanks for tuning in. Big fan of this fella. Big fan. So you've raised him well. Big fan of Brian's too. And did you know you can get his book, 3 books for the price of 2? I've always said that. Never been any different. Just a quick question from Cutthroat Comics, and a quick shout out to Cutthroat Comics too, because he's got his first live stream coming up, and he's got his guest is going to be someone from Image Comics. I'm not too familiar with Image Comics, but check it out, and you might learn a thing or two. But when did Action Force get into space? When did that happen? Very
first issue.
Yes.
Oh, really? That far back? Well, there you go.
Yeah.
No. Oh, I've got a thing for that. Hang on. They're out.
Because knowing is half the battle.
Space Commander.
There we are. Knowing is half the battle. Michael's popped in. How are you, Michael? Pow. Good to see you, buddy.
Yeah,
first issue, off into space. That's how you do it. Don't mess around. Just go straight into it.
Yeah, so that first story, before the comic became Battle Action Force, and it was still called Battle, with Action Force being like a guest story inside, they very early on sort of established the 4 teams. But they didn't really go into too much detail yet as to what Space Force and Q Force were going to be. And I think, from the Cosmic Cruiser that I showed earlier, you could see they didn't have the actual one that was going to be the production piece to copy from. They were still using like a prototype one. So I think that in the early stories, they hadn't really got enough to flesh out the characters yet, whereas they did with SAS and Z Force.
Right.
Oh, Don
Okay.
I think as well,
Magna. Yeah.
there was a genuine effort at the very beginning to try and give equal sort of spotlight, or to share it for the 4 Action Force teams to share the spotlight evenly. So in that very first story arc, where Baron Ironblood has taken over Sentency Island, and Action Force have to go in to essentially get him out and rescue the population. Space Force have kind of like a reconnaissance role in terms of scoping out the for a satellite view of the island. They do, as Spacey said there, they do the SAS team do a halo drop from the kind of high altitude orbiter vehicle, which is eventually shot out of the sky by a red laser. And then it switches to Q Force, then also do kind of, a more kind of a surface level sort of reconnaissance, and then Z Force come in and do the full on assault of the island. So they all have these different roles, but once you get into the main comic, SAS Force and Z Force tend to get nearly all of the story time. There really is only one Space Force story in the weekly, which is the codename Sky Raider story, and Q Force only got one story as well. They got codename Sea Line, Operation Sea Line, and they got I'm drawing a blank on the name of the story that's kind of set. It's set in the middle of Operation Bloodhound, but again, it's a Q Force centric story. But it's a shame that they didn't get more kind of story time in the comic, because they were really good teams. The stories that they did get were really, really good stories, and they hold up, or they stand up against the more traditional military forces of SAS Force and Z Force.
That is cool. I think you need to go back to that page, Space Commander. Don't think I didn't see it. Timer is still running. I saw it, mate.
So, this guy here, Carl Vagan, he's the main bad guy in the Coffin in Space story, and it's an interesting look, because of this is a guy whose face you can see, but whose eyes you can't.
Right.
Now, Action Force are used to fighting a guy whose eyes you can see and whose face you can't. So we're kind of left with this mystery at the end of that particular story. Again, Space Commander here with the big lantern jaw, tough looking guy, and we're left with this question: Baron Ironblood, you think that Carl Vagan of 5 years ago is? And then Space Commander says, like I said, Greg, I have no proof. One thing's for sure: we can expect lots more trouble from the evil Baron. So it kind of raises this question: is Carl Vagan? Is he the Baron? In some stories, they mention that maybe the Baron's real name is Kessels. And I noticed in all the Highlander films, the bad guy's name always begins with a K. So you got like Carl Vagan and Kessels. Right. Is it the same guy? So they purposefully never answer that question. But
I do like to think that maybe Carl Vagan is Baron Ironblood. He was Carl Vagan, then he reinvented himself, becomes Baron Ironblood, who then reinvents himself and becomes Cobra Commander. And that fourth iteration has yet to be revealed of where Cobra Commander is going to go next in the Action Force universe.
True. Timer is reset now, Space Commander. So Gad keep us in tune then. There was a slide here I did want to show from yours, Brian, if you don't mind me flipping through yours. But I do love this. I do love this one.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just bringing the data file, from the card art, bringing it to life in the comic. And I love that very statuesque pose of Space Commander right there. I mean, he looks pretty cool. And then that sort of inset shot of him in his kind of, I suppose, outer space outfit. You'll notice in the Space Force team, whenever the Space Force team features in the comic, if they're not in outer space, they're all wearing uniforms similar to what Space Commander wears. And then
yes,
So that, taking that sort of artistic license, saying, okay, well, this is clearly what they look like when they're just, in the office, for want of a better term, put the cap on, the fatigues, and then you see them in their, I love the design of the spacesuit. Then I think that's the helmet design, the gloves. It's cool.
It is cool. That's the very definition of cool. I like that his gloves also point the direction to put your hand in, because you can get mistaken sometimes. Show that figure again, please, Spacey.
Here we go.
Yeah, that's one of the better spacesuit designs I've ever seen. Love it.
Cool. Is the arrow on the figure? Is the arrow molded onto the figure's gloves? Because it's features in the comic art all the time, but I don't know if it's on the figure.
I don't know. There is some molded on detail there. I'm not sure if it's an arrow, but
yeah, it just looks like kind of like
what about the other one?
A pocket or a patch or something like on the glove. It doesn't look like an arrow, no. So that's obviously a bit of artistic license to make the uniform look a bit more dynamic. Arrows is a great graphic tool to just make things look dynamic.
Well, I like it.
I noticed as well in some of the issues, the Space Force hat logo, instead of being round, it's on like a triangle.
Yeah.
So again, I think they were trying different things to keep it visually interesting.
In fact, you can see the triangle on that particular image on screen there. That's definitely a triangle on the front of the hat.
Oh, see, I can't see any arrow or any detail on that glove either. But
I don't know why we can't make out the detail there, Spaceman, because your camera is crystal clear.
Oh, God. I'm doing my best with what I got, okay?
I'm just messing with you. I'm just hacking on you. Yeah, old Flash Gordon black and white. Yeah. It does give off that sort of vibe. Very classic space adventures. Love it.
And Ron Turner, who did most of the Space Force art, he would have been one of the more mature, older kind of artists working on the strip. So his style has definitely there's a beautiful vintage, I think almost like that sort of Flash Gordon era from the 50s, that kind of feel to his art. So you see that with the any vehicles that are not toys, where he has to create them himself from his own imagination, they have that very vintage sci-fi kind of vibe to them, which is beautiful.
Oh yeah. What's he scanning for there? He's looking for metachlorians, or it's got a metal detector happening.
We don't talk about midichlorians.
No, not in these parts.
I've seen the Acolyte, so he's obviously looking for a Virgins.
That's what I was getting at. Yeah, I just you never know when you need a metal detector. Yeah, it is a bit. Star Wars got a bit ruined, didn't it, Space Commander?
Completely ruined. However,
yes. Back to the good stuff.
This is great. Yeah, love that.
Okay, so
what a great shot.
There's two of your buddies on the front there, Brian. But
Stakeout, Quickfire.
But this features a story called Operation Spearhead, and it's funny because when I was digging through to find some of the things to refer to, there's some stories that are very space heavy, like Codename Sky Raider, which I showed just now, which I'm kind of familiar with because I go back to those ones. But I was thumbing through Operation Spearhead, which is one of the crossover stories, which has all 4 teams in it, and I forgot how good it was. I really got dragged into reading it again from start to finish, which is probably why I was late getting ready tonight.
Yeah, that's what it really was. You were reading comics.
Yeah, but there in the bottom corner, you can see the Space Force guys with their spacesuits on.
Yeah, that's cool.
And what's happened there is the Red Laser, who's the Cobra Commander repaint, he's fired his laser exterminator at Sky Raider, and he's had to bail out. But which he's cool. He's managed to get out of the spaceship faster than it takes a laser beam to hit the ship and blow it up. He gets out, skydives, and when he's on the ground, he and some other Action Force guys. There's this great workforce has been taken prisoner and enslaved by Baron Ironblood. so the guys, they strip off their shirts and they join the workforce as a way of blending in and getting closer to the bad guys. Now, so here we have Skyraider on my thumb there. So he's come down from the sky in his chute and is now here. The other guys here are SAS Force. They've infiltrated and joined the workforce. Now Skyraider gets all the best lines because of this poor unfortunate Red Shadow here. What a scumbag! He thinks these guys are just like beaten, downtrodden slaves, and they're not working fast enough. So he says to them, "You need to taste my whip." To which Skyraider replies, grabbing the whip, "Y'all need to taste my fist."
Oh, yes. Pow! Right in the kisser.
Right in the kisser.
Yeah.
So
That's
he
brilliant.
really gets lots of classic lines. If I was organised, I would have something here to show you.
Well, Mrs. Space Commander said that I must buy Spacey a decent webcam. I'll say this. His technology has gotten better since we first started this show, and it's actually become part of his charm. I, in no means, have anything that I would consider decent either. This is a low-tech show for something that's called incoming transmission. But it's... and Retro Tinker is here saying, "Morning, chaps. Morning to you." And Joe Fan 84 is back from the doctor, so he's tuning in again. 3 p.m. his time.
Wow.
Yeah. So
The way the time zones work is really strange.
gave him a tasty knuckle sandwich. Pow!
He did. If we come to a later story, though, actually, let me just show you this quickly.
Take your time.
So
I'm already up.
The annual. I love this.
Yeah. So this was another crossover story where they had all the teams working together.
Oh, that was cool.
As Brian and I were saying earlier, that there weren't many stories which were just Space Force on their own. But Skyraider takes out a couple of satellite defense ships to take on some Red Shadow astronauts. And again, he gets all the best lines. 2 of the Shadow fighter craft turned on Chuck's defender, trying to get me in a crossfire. Then the Red Shadow says, "He's hit. He's spiraling away. Blood for the Baron." Chuck says, "No, just pretending." Swings around and blasts them. Then, as if that wasn't spectacular enough, he says, "Flying upside down and shooting straight requires a special skill." You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Upside down in space, is that technically a thing? I like the use of red there, though. How good is that? Just a slight bit of color really adds to the sci-fi element of those panels. I love it.
Yeah.
Again, that's one of those lovely sort of print features. They didn't have the budgets necessarily to print full color throughout, so you would get this kind of like a spot color. And in that particular story, it's the spot red and black throughout that, and then it just goes back to the regular black and white then for the next story.
There you go.
Oh yes, still great stuff. Love it.
Just before the Palatoy Action Force was phased out and the Hasbro Action Force came in, there was one last story which was very it was still Space Force centered. So like I said, there were only like 1 or 2 where they ever really did that. And this was I believe it was codename Moondancer.
Codename Moondancer, yeah.
So this is the reason I picked this one out, even though it's not about Skyraider, it's about Moondancer. They've drawn him very differently now. He's kind of thin and gaunt, and got blonde hair. Very different from the guy who said, "Takes my fist." You know.
Yeah.
That guy out, great square jaw and black hair.
Space will do that to you, though.
It's true. Yeah. This is an interesting story because of Moondancer finds floating in space and Apollo 18. Now, as we all know, there were only 17 Apollo missions. Here he finds Apollo 18 floating in space with 2 dead astronauts aboard. And painted on the bottom of the Apollo lunar module, written in blood, is blood for the Baron.
Oh,
so
interesting.
When Moondancer then gets home from his mission and has to report that 2 cadets who were with him have been killed and that they found this Apollo 18 capsule, a very different portrayal of Space Commander Skyraider. Again, he's got this blonde hair and he's kind of thin looking, and he says, "I trained with NASA too. No Apollo 18 mission ever took place. That is cold, hard fact, Captain. And until you can prove otherwise, I'm rejecting your report totally." So he's really, really on Moondancer, quite viciously. And Moondancer even says, "I always suspected he didn't like me, and now I know he doesn't."
Right.
But I don't really see it that way. I just see this as some very weird alternate portrayal of him, and it dawned on me that maybe what they were going for was something along the lines of UFO, which was a British sci-fi series from the 70s. And here you will see the leader of UFO is this man played by Ed Bishop, and he's got the short blonde hair. And that character in that story is much more like this guy, because this guy was really tough and really hard on his team. But then when you see sort of like the backstory, you learn why he's such a hard ass all the time.
Right.
And I wonder if maybe they were trying to go with something more along those sorts of lines rather than the Space Commander that we were used to.
Maybe he was just having a bad day.
It could have been he was having a bad day, but that story goes on for quite a few issues, and he's having a bad day every day.
Mate, I've had a few bad days in a row.
However, in the last couple of panels here, we see him. I mean, this whole thing about Skyraider never liked me. I don't buy that. So here he says, "I don't often admit I was wrong, El Shafai." That's Moondancer's real name. "But you've proved your innocence beyond doubt. There was a secret Apollo 18 mission to the moon, and Ironblood's men did take it over for their own evil ends. The charges of manslaughter and desertion against you are dropped, and you are now reinstated as a captain in the Space Force Fighter Command. Thank you, sir. Is that all?" "No, just one more thing. Welcome back." And the story ends with Skyraider shaking Moondancer's hand and welcoming him back to Space Force. And that's kind of poignant, really, because it was straight after this that they switched over to the Hasbro characters. They did one more. They did a story called World Enemy Number 1, and Skyraider is in that for one panel. I mean, that's a story that ran for weeks and weeks and weeks. He's in one panel, and that was kind of see you later. And that was kind of the last time you see Skyraider from Space Force and Leviathan from Q-Force is in this one panel in this World Enemy Number 1 story. So prior to that being their send-off, which I kind of think if they'd have had more time, if they'd have known the end was coming, they would have given him a better send-off rather than just having him in the background in one panel, in one long story. But because that didn't happen, because that story was the end of it, that means that this story, with this kind of angry exchange between Moondancer and Skyraider, that was Skyraider's last story, really, in Battle Action Force. But of course, as little kids, we didn't know. So we carried on playing. When they brought out the new Bendy figures with the new Hasbro characters, we didn't know there was anything different. So we, of course, carried on playing with, my Skyraider action figure and the Z-Force, Q-Force, SAS Force, all the characters. We carried on playing with them, including the new Bendy figures. So as far as we were concerned, that wasn't any kind of ending at all. But now that we know what happened and we're looking back on it, we can say that was really the last Space Force story.
It was, absolutely. It was, that's, I mean, well, firstly, I've just got to say, for someone who didn't do much show prep, you've done amazing show prep.
He always brings the props. I'll give him that.
But so there's loads to unpack it in all of that. I mean, that codename Moondancer story, I love that analogy with the UFO series, and you can see with a lot of the different stories where they're pulling in influences from other media type. So there's definitely Jerry Finley Day was looking at different films that he was bringing into the stories. That particular story was written by Scott Goodall, another superb writer. He didn't do as much writing as Jerry did, and Scott did a lot of the kind of what we call, say, the character focused stories or backstories. But in this particular case here, he's kind of taken he was probably just given a brief. We need to push this new toy, the Triad Fighter. Here's the pilot, Moon Dancer that goes with it. Come up with something. And and because there wasn't much Space Force continuity to work with, he just, went with his own thing. That's what I'm guessing anyway. So Sky Raider seems a little bit out of character in that story compared to say his previous appearances. But yeah, I never thought of it in those terms, Spacey. That is that you get that story, then you just get that one panel in World Enemy Number 1, which is at the beginning of that story, where the Action Force teams are kind of committed to taking down, Baron Armblood and the Red Shadows, and that's it. It's after that, it's a whole the universe changes, completely after that.
Yeah, it's interesting that when you're saying how they were probably influenced by things going on at the time. The amount of giant shark stories that appeared in British comics after Jaws came out. But when I was going through these, the story Codename Sky Raider, where you get a flashback to Sky Raider's earlier career, and it's still the big, proper, chunky, muscular Sky Raider. There's a bit where he's just straight up gets on this wheeled machine and charges at the bad guys. He's going to run them over. And this machine, even though this comic came out in 1983, and the film Aliens came out in 86, but in Aliens, I'm not saying Aliens copied it, it's probably just a coincidence. In Aliens, the character Ripley, she's in a scene driving this huge APC vehicle, great big grinding wheels, huge macho kind of metal muscular machine. And then later on, she's driving the power suit that's like a forklift truck that you wear on your sleeves. And the vehicle that Sky Raider uses to run those bad guys over is like those two vehicles crossed. Right. It's like a big wheeled, bone crunching machine, but with these mechanical pincers on it as well.
That's cool.
I just saw that, and I wish I got the picture with me to show you. But that was funny.
I'm surprised you don't.
It's in the other loading bay. It's in the loading bay down the back. Okay. I could go get it, but the show must go on.
Yeah, fair enough. And
I do see, like, when I'm reading the stories, I do see ideas that that you see repeated in cinema. Ideas from Battle repeated in cinema years later, like Invasion 1984 by John Wagner and Alan Grant. Which was running, parallel to some of those Action Force stories for a short while. A brilliant alien invasion story. Highly recommend picking it up if you get a chance. But I think that Michael Bay made it Independence Day. He brought a lot of Invasion 1984. There's so many, even though that predates his film by maybe 10 years. It was, it's great ideas. They don't get lost.
Was there? I might be wrong about this, but was there a horror film released a few years ago about there was like the Apollo 18 mission? It was a secret, and there was like some zombified spaceman in it or something. Because I don't watch modern horror films, so I think I might have some vague recollection of it, but I don't really remember. But again, if that did happen, then again, it's he's on the case.
I'm not aware of the film, but I would love to see that film.
Well, interesting. From bloodforthebaron.com, Jim the Baron Marshall, doing his Action Force Redux comics, he's actually done like a precursor story where you see the moment, you witness the moment that Blood for the Baron is written on the bottom of the lunar module in blood.
Okay, look at that.
Oh, okay.
That's what reminded me. I'm sure that a few years back I saw a poster or an advert or something for some. Oh, there you go.
Apollo 18.
They totally stole it.
we can't hear him scream though because he's in space.
He's in space.
Well, if you're inside a spacesuit with him, you'd be able to hear him scream.
Well, that's true. Yeah, share one suit. Yeah.
No one
That's
wants
pretty
to
cool
be
image.
Nice.
Anyway,
I've
I-
garbled enough. I've spoken enough with my unprepared pile of stuff.
I think that was very well prepared, and I reckon that you say you're unprepared just to make it look like you've got all this skill, and make me look like I've got no skill at all, which is true. Yeah, there is one called Apollo 18. Thanks, Gaz. Have you seen it? I haven't seen it though, but if you've seen it, let us know.
And doesn't anyone go, aye?
Reset that timer. All right, I'm gonna jump in here then and show off a character. But do hit that like button if you've hung out with us this long. We do appreciate it. Joe Fan's got an Australian slang question, if that's okay. Yes. I was watching Dundee the other day, and he called someone a dobby. Did I hear that right? I've never called anyone a dobby. I can't say the word I've called people, but it's also Australian. Dobby's a new one for me. That might be a Harry Potter thing. But yeah, no. What slang do we have that would be close to dobby? I don't know. What was the context? Yeah. Oh, he has seen it. All right. If it's worth a watch, I'll check it out.
Check it out one time, won't you?
Dobby?
Dobby.
Not sure. That's a new one for me. I don't know. But speaking of Aussies, Aussie.
Oi, oi, oi.
We're looking at Recondo, and then a little bit later we're gonna see where Recondo takes us. So silent attack. So we came with a kayak called a silent attack kayak. Developed 4 action force surprise attacks, sabotage and surveillance, manned by Recondo. No one else gets one. Only Recondo gets one. And according to this, Recondo's birthplace is Melbourne, Australia. Oh, Gaz, I'm going to put you on the spot here, Gaz. Can you tell me where Recondo from G.I. Joe comes from? Sorry to put you on the spot there. Do it the old-fashioned way. Recondo, birthplace, Melbourne, Australia. We call it Melbourne, but you often hear it Melbourne across the pond. Melbourne, Australia. Brought up on the banks of the Snowy River, Recondo was schooled in watercrafts from an early age. Learned how to shoot whitewater rapids. I'm not sure what that would do. You know, shooting at the whitewater rapids. They can't really shoot back. Anyway, learned how to shoot whitewater rapids when in the Australian Special Forces Action Force training has developed his silent but deadly attack techniques. So that is the Action Force version of G.I. Joe's Recondo. Great art here, colorized. I saw there was a black and white version of this as well. I'm not sure who colorized this. I stole it from the internet. If this is your image, let me know if you colorized it.
The original artist who would have done the black and white work in that is Vanyo, and Vanyo is one of those Action Force artists geniuses. I'm on record as saying like the Vanyo brothers are my favorite Action Force artists, and their work even today I think is still unmatched in terms of detail, precision, quality. They really were a tour de force in the 70s and 80s.
Well, I love it. So Gaz has come in with saying that Recondo is from Wheaton, Wisconsin. But here he's from Melbourne, Australia. Now, the original design for Recondo, according to the designer Ron Rudat, he was meant to be Australian, and somewhere in the mix it got changed up to him being from Wheaton, Wisconsin. But he's quite clearly a slouch hat Aussie, and always will be, in my opinion. Thanks, Joe Fan. Big fan of you guys too. So that was a repaint. But thanks for the compliment, Joe Fan. Repaint of that one. So that's cool. And was that just a solo situation that you got that boat, or did it come with
the boat came with the figure.
Yes. Who's the figure then?
That's Beaver.
Of course. He's a beaver, eh?
Beaver.
So, it says here that Recondo was specifically trained to use it. So Beaver hasn't been trained to use it. He's just using it off the books.
Yeah. So between Recondo's silent and deadly attack and the codename Beaver, I think we've all done very well not to fall about giggling.
I've held off. I've held off trying to make any. It's tried and true, isn't that right, Brian? You've heard it all before. No point me doing it again. But here's an image. Space Commander sent me this one. Action Force Silent Attack, otherwise known as the Attack Silencioso.
Silencioso.
Yep. And in orange, which I like the orange, and I think like black is cool. You can't go wrong with black, but the orange kind of reminds me of the G.I. Joe boat. What was that called? The Gaz, help me out here. What was the boat that came with G.I. Joe? I always forget stuff. Devilfish. Thank you, Brian. I forget I've got other experts on the panel. The Devilfish reminds me of the Devilfish, and so I like it in orange. Oh yes, Raised on Neighbors. We apologize for that. Everybody needs good neighbors. You need better TV shows, though. Yeah, not a lot of people came with kayak. I think Stalker came with a kayak. Tracker came with an inflatable raft. How good is that?
Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, is that a small flag or is that a rudder? Must be a flag. Could be a rudder.
There's a little flag at the back, and there's probably an antenna back there somewhere. You just can't see it in that shot, but there's an antenna on the boat too.
That's pretty cool. It looks like there should be something that goes in the front with that little hole there. Is that for anything? Maybe a gun? I don't know.
You could push you could move this. That's one of the great things with the pallet toy designs, was that kind of modular design. So you could move the accessories around, or put weapons or stuff in there. You could mix it up, customize it.
So the searchlight rotates. That's good news. And it's got a what's that say? SA2846 maybe. Wonder what that means. We don't know.
They're probably the same stickers that were on the original Silent Attack, the black version. So they probably translated over for this. Not just the color change isn't the only key difference here, though. They had to retool the part where the figure sits in, because you couldn't put a Hasbro figure into the original hole that was there. So they had to accommodate the Hasbro figures.
I guess the SA would stand for Silent Attack, and maybe they have at least 2,846 of them, but who knows? So the figure that comes with it, this says Action Man and Action Force, just letting us know where he came from. Nowhere on there does it say G.I. Joe, but that's okay, because we'll take a look at a real American hero version of Recondo here with swivel arm battle grip, a great dynamic pose, quite obviously an Australian, if you ask me. And I'll defend that to the end. But great accessories there, great looking figure, and even in a static pose like that, it's just great. Just a great toy. Yeah, he looks great. Great Aussie.
It's got the slouch hat and everything.
Yeah, just. I mean, imagine if I put that much effort into my mustache. Oh, I could go places. So anyway. We had a comic book that ran for, I think, only 4 issues, and they were reprints of G.I. Joe, but they were in black and white, so you guys would appreciate that. And if you see here, it says G.I. Joe Australia came out in October, only $1.95. That's a bargain. By Cyclone Comics in conjunction with Marvel, obviously. And it says the world's #1 action force down under. So we've got Digger here in the front. Looks like Recondo, but we'll soon find that it's not Recondo. We've got G.I. Joe Australia and a reference to Action Force, which is great. And then if we have a look on the inside, so they were reprints of the comic. However, they opened and ended with a little introduction by our pal Digger, which is obviously supposed to be the Recondo figure character, but called Digger because why? Because he's obviously Australian. Anyway, I'll read it out because why not? Story time. So I was going to put on an Australian accent, but I don't got to do that. Anyway, g'day. Round here, I'm known as Digger. I'm on guard duty outside the Australian G.I. Joe base near Exmouth, WA. I've been through there. It doesn't look like much from the outside, but don't let appearances fool you. I can relate to that. This is one of Australia's best defense installations against the terrorist, what does it say, bludgers? Of course it does. Terrorist bludgers known as Cobra. Now, I said Cobra there instead of Cobra because we often do say Cobra instead of Cobra, although I think some people might disagree, like Retro Tinker. He says Cobra, but we say Cobra around these parts. Cobra, in case you didn't know, is an organization hell-bent on blackmail. That's probably on the lower end of what they do. Terrorism and destruction. They're so big and powerful that G.I. Joe was formed a few years back to stop them or any other bent bananas like them. So there you go. Bent banana. I've never used that. I've never used it, but I'm going to start bringing it back.
Yeah, I'm going to use that.
Yeah, that's us Joes, the best specialist fighting men from around the world on one team working like a well-oiled machine. And I agree. International heroes is all right with me. No worries. But being a Joe's not always Vegemite on toast. I'm going to start bringing that one back too. That's why I'm out here. That's why I'm out here now. Struth. I haven't used that one in a while. Struth. You never know when Cobra are going to strike next. Love it.
Dude, that is brilliant. I tell you, I love Digger already. Let's get more Digger. This is great.
So there was a G-Force Racing 20 rounding that corner, coming into first place, saying, "Hey, Zazel, Space Commander, and Brian, how are you?" It's nice when people include everyone. It is a cool little, yeah. But do hit that like button, please. It does help. There was another toy line in this scale that came out a couple of years ago. They're still around now. I think it's called why does the name escape me? Military stuff. Peacekeepers maybe, and they had a little set where you could have like a little Billy situation like this is, a little Billy over the fire there. So I was able to a few years ago recreate. I don't have a picture of it, unfortunately, but I was able to recreate this with that set, which is pretty cool. Zazo, you're going to start saying words like dinghy and shrimp on the barbie. We don't even say shrimp on the barbie. It would be prawn. We don't say shrimp here. We say prawn. And I've never been to a barbecue where they've ever made the effort of throwing any prawns on the barbecue. The old barbie, dinghy. That's a small boat, right? That's what we call a dinghy, a little small boat. But yeah, so this is unfortunately, Digger never did come with an official action figure, whether it be in G.I. Joe, Action Force, or otherwise. So I decided one year to do my own. So unfortunately, if you want a Digger, you have to get customizing. So what I did is I got this was for a little convention that we did with our WA friends many years ago, back in 2013. In fact, I did this. Could have been a bit earlier, and I was able to get a couple of Recondos, cheap as chips back then, and some Night Force ones and some regular versions of Recondo. Interestingly, Space Commander told me that the Night Force Recondo was called Wild Bill in Action Force. That's weird.
Yeah, it's weird. It's just weird.
All right. Space Bananas is a trademark by Silicious Rum. Okay, I'll try not to make money off of it. So I put this together. The card itself, as you can see, it says a real Australian hero. And it's a slight variation of, I'll do a comparison in a moment, but it's a slightly different to the one that we got. Not just colors, and the weapon's different too. And my friend Tom, he put this together for us, this art. So I painted the figures, and he got the card sorted. And I did about 6 of them and handed them out to my buddies, and we and that was our Digger for a while. We also went as far as to give him a file card, and we added Skymate to the panel because of course you have to have an Aussie in there. And as many dreadnoks as we could fit for extra Aussie goodness, even though some of them aren't from our neck of the woods. Now, Space Commander, I've got to make a comment, probably an apology as well. I mentioned that there was an episode we were doing on Michael Mercy's channel. We were doing a cartoon commentary, and Sarge clocks Buzzer and knocks him out while he was eating a sandwich, right? And I said he wasn't that particular Dreadnought wasn't an Aussie, so he couldn't take a punch because he was from your neck of the woods, Space Commander. And I feel like, hang on a minute, that's probably a bit mean. So I apologize for that.
I only really recently realised that he's supposed to be from Cambridge, which is like one of the big university cities in the UK. It's only about half an hour's drive away from the Space Force ground station. Right. So when I'm down on planet Earth visiting, it's quite nearby. But because of I'd only ever sort of heard him on the cartoon, and the accents on the cartoon, I'm afraid to say they're so terrible. I thought they were all Australians, but I guess that's in Hollywood. I guess they can't quite make the distinction.
Well, here's the G.I. Joe equivalent of an Aussie accent. Let's hear it.
This is Sky, mate. G.I. Joe will be right back.
Crikey!
Put that on your Dobie, or whatever the slang was. Anyway, so I did do a file card for it, made up a file card. We didn't really have a lot to go by. So I came up with the name Percy R. Trench as his file name. Percy being the my granddad's name on my mum's side. R standing for Reginald, which was my dad's dad, my granddad on my dad's side. Trench because it just sounded cool. He's a desert reconnaissance. His primary military specialty is desert survival. Secondary military specialty is ophiology. Do we know what that is?
No.
That is the study of snakes.
Nice. I did not know that.
You would need that in these parts, I'll tell you. Ophiology. I've never had to say that word out loud, so there you go. It's the first time I've ever said it. Birthplace, Exmouth in WA, and that's a little callback to his previous panel where he was stationed in Exmouth. We decided to just make it that's where he was born. Good enough for me. Which is different to Recondo's birthplace for Action Force, and obviously for G.I. Joe. Anyway, so it goes on to say, on a recon mission in the Australian Army Corps, Digger and his squad were attacked while behind enemy lines. Digger's mate Billy, now Billy being Boomerang Billy from the Corps line, if you've ever seen those action figures, Billy was one of them. Boomerang Billy. Billy was hit, but Digger dragged him on a makeshift stretcher over 300 kilometers to deliver the intel on the new Cobra base. Impressed by Digger's gut and determination, General Hawk invited Digger to join Skymate. Here's another throwback to G.I. Joe. On the new G.I. Joe International Ops team. Digger learned his old rival Major Blood, who was another Aussie, was behind the attack and didn't hesitate in accepting the offer to stomp some snakes. And you'll see that his slogan at the bottom there is, being a Joe's not always Vegemite on toast. You never know when Cobra's going to strike next. There you go.
Well done.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well done.
That was fun. But we'll do a little bit of a side by side. So there was the real Australian hero version of Digger, and there is the Jungle Trooper Recondo. You see the gun is different and the paint's different. The mustache is also blonde. It took me one container of tan paint was all I needed.
Well, hopefully, maybe Super 7 will do a Digger variant. That'd be
Super 7 link is in the chat. If you're watching, and we know everyone watches this show. Joe Fan 84, if you want to try Vegemite, mate, I'll send you some. No problemo there. Happy to do that for you, Dobie. But just what's that?
I do love a bit of Vegemite.
Oh, you only need a bit. You don't put a lot on. You only need a little. I don't mind a bit of Marmite either, but Vegemite's where it's at. But Joe Fan 84, if you want me to send you one, just hit me up on Instagram or send me a message on Facebook or something. Let me know your address is, and I'll send you some. Don't overdo it. Don't blame me if you don't like it. So Buzzer was an extreme left-wing Cambridge sociology don with a set so big that he went to fight Sarge while eating a sandwich. Yeah, didn't go well for it. Is it spicy? No, it's not spicy. Is it salty? Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
it is. What does it taste like? If Vegemite tastes like Vegemite, that's it. There's no comparison. Anything else. It's very unique. Cutthroat Comics, I'll send you some too if you like. Happy to do so. Very happy to do so. So just send me your address and I'll send some to you. Again, don't blame me for it. Sparingly. If you're putting it on toast, I love it on a sandwich. But if you're putting it on toast, the ratio of margarine or butter, depending on which way you skew, must be more than the Vegemite. You know what I mean? Yeah, please do. And Gaz, thanks, buddy, putting in TotalToyBooks.com. Link is also in the description. Now, I don't know if you guys know this, but right now and for a few days, you can actually get 3 books for the price of 2.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Is it better on toast? It is. I prefer it on a sandwich, but it's not bad on toast. You know what it's really good on? A crumpet. Vegemite is too good on a crumpet. I'll say that much. Too bloody good on a crumpet. I like my crumpets like really crunchy though. Like I'm not a soft crumpet guy. I've got to really toast them up, and then throw some Vegemite on it, and we're good to go.
We're all going over to you for afternoon tea.
Yeah, perfect. Done. You bring the scones. So unfortunately, Brian, there is no official Digger figure. You just have to get a Recondo and some tan paint, and you're good to go.
Well, do you know what? And after seeing this as well, I'm really curious to see those comics that feature Digger. Are there any stories like that are not just reprints of the?
Yeah, unfortunately not. There was only 4
intro page.
Yeah, so the intro and the outro were bookended by Digger. There were only 4 issues, I'm pretty sure. And then after that, we just got the Marvel Comics run.
Right. Wow. Okay. Man, that's incredible.
Try it on a crumpet. All right, but yeah.
Oh yeah. Do you know? I'm so glad. Wait, we're going to segue now to our final character for tonight.
Codename Stakeout. That looks like a scene out of Blues Brothers.
Yeah, but that's exactly probably what it is. So I'll just give some quick context to Stakeout. While Space Commander has that cover up there, so he is a key member of SAS Force. He features, I'm going to say he features in almost every SAS Force story that there is. He's incredibly loyal to the squad leader, because he was formerly a criminal. And Eagle basically bailed him out of trouble and roped him into SAS Force, and because of that loyalty he's been steadfastly loyal to Eagle ever since. So they make a great pairing, Eagle and Stakeout. And when you're back in the early 80s reading those comics, they were the characters that featured quite prominently in the stories. So he's a character that I remember as a kid. And what I love about him is his kind of wicked sense of humor. But that, I suppose we'll talk a little bit more about him as we dive into this.
Do you want some? I'm
gonna
slides?
I'm gonna pop open a slide here for Stakeout. Yeah, okay, here we go.
Are you guys doing that by witchcraft or something? How do you do that?
I'd explain it to you, but I'm afraid it would go over your head.
It's entirely possible.
Using the Carl Vagan technology here to. This is a great panel here. This is an intro to one of the episodes of Operation Claymore, and front and center you got Stakeout. Illustrated by John Cooper. He's a great character. They're kind of making a last stand here in this particular episode. But as I said, he comes from Liverpool, so when you're reading the character, you've got to try and read him with that kind of thick Scouser sort of accent. And he's just got this kind of wicked sense of humor where he makes fun of everybody who he's on a mission with. So in this particular story, you see to Stakeout's to the left there, the guy with the headband, that's another SAS trooper called Haggis, who's from Scotland.
That makes sense. Yeah.
That's where Liverpool's kind of Scouser Scottish kind of rivalry is just, Jerry Finley-Day plays in that throughout the whole story, of which one guy rubbing the other guy up the wrong way.
Oh, look at that. Yeah, well,
it's tricky to run the space station and and do a live stream as well at the same time.
That's right. It's protecting us from the skies, in the skies.
If I stop pedaling, we're going to fall out of orbit.
You can't be expected to know everything. But this is another great use of that red colorization. I love it.
Yes.
It's brilliant. And I guess when you've got
skip there, sorry, I'm going to jump back.
No, it's all good. When you've got your major bad guys as the red shadows, and it also comes in handy to have that option to go red.
Yeah, it's I love that kind of color treatment. This is when they changed the format slightly within Battle, and what you had was all of the Action Force stories were contained in the center 16 pages, so you could detach them, open the staples, and lift it out. And then
that's cool.
So you could have a separate Action Force magazine. So that's where you got the heading at the top there, 16 adventure-packed pages.
I like that it also says
scattered throughout the comic.
I like that it also says continued on next page, so you don't get confused.
Yeah.
Right? This is how a magazine works. You turn the page and you get more story.
Yes.
But that is great art. I love the cap. Who's the guy on the right hand side?
That's Eagle on the right. He's got his hood up, which is his trademark look in the comics.
Gotcha. Oh man, so cool. Oh yes, we got Brian the Hick on Instagram. Do check it out.
Cheers, guys. I have a quick look at Stakeout's file card. So there we go. So he came packaged with the boat patrol. This is a Palatoy designed a boat, a raft that could. It's kind of like the night landing craft from G.I. Joe, a little bit like that, if you wanted a comparison. But it also could double up as the roof. They would store it on the roof of the Action Force Jeep.
That's right. Space Commander showed me that. Blew my mind. I was like, that is ingenious.
It's such interchangeability.
It's super, absolutely super. So we get some quick stats here. His primary military specialty is seaborne assault, and he gets his seaborne skills are used a lot throughout the various comics or the various stories. And in secondary military specialty is small arms. But I think that's what Palatoy came up with when they were kind of creating the character. In the comic, his preferred weapon of choice is a shotgun.
Weaponry. So it's not like a T-Rex who's got small arms. Gotcha.
Yes.
All right. That'd be a weird specialty.
Of course, you can see the artist who's drawn the file card. He's doing his kind of small arms fire kind of target practice here. But really, when we get into the comics, this guy they're using stolen red shadow weapons here in this particular panel. But here he is with the shotgun, using it to great effect to take out some red shadows who've taken over a Royal Air Force helicopter.
Why?
This one's more of a wah.
I varied it slightly. I put a W at the start.
Yeah,
gotcha. Nailed it. I like the depth of this art with the shotgun coming out of the panel and showing some depth there. So good.
Yeah, this is again more John Cooper artwork here. He's the cross hatching king. In terms of his kind of shading approach. And then the perspective here on the shotgun. It's really it's just really dynamic and how they break the panels. I love that.
Yeah,
Stakeout. Yeah, he was a former criminal. There he is blasting a shotgun again, and he comes into a bit of bother with Red Laser. He takes a shuriken to the chest.
Holy moly!
which kind of puts him out of action, you know, at the end of that particular mission. But he does recover. Spoiler alert, and he does come back in the future. But he's one of my kind of favorite characters. I love his loyalty to Eagle. I love that the shotgun is a throwback, I always think, to his criminal past. I just imagine that sort of British gangster kind of vibe, you know, from the 70s. And I love that cover that Space Commander was holding up there a little while ago of that kind of car chase, which is a scene from his you know, pre-Action Force days.
Nice.
Yeah, you watch any of those British crime films or TV shows from the 70s, you will know that the double barrel shotgun is the weapon of choice for bank robbers.
Gotcha.
So that's the quick capsule sort of you know, overview of Stakeout. I feel I haven't done anywhere near as much prep as you guys have done with your characters.
Are you kidding? I threw this together just now.
I think we have all equally come up with just the right amount of prep, whether it was 5 minutes before the show or otherwise. No judgment.
in Operation Spearhead that we mentioned earlier, one of the crossover stories, when I was digging this out for the Space Force stuff, I did notice this funny little sort of moment here, because Quickfire and Stakeout were always on each other's cases, you know.
Yes.
So let me see. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
So you've got this here where Quickfire is silently making his way up a guard tower, taking out the guards. Aye! And when he comes back down, the first thing that Quickfire says is, they ought to change his code name to Muller the Monkey.
Yeah. That's those are the one-liners. We get a lot of those out of Stakeout throughout the story. So he's a great character.
I like that they're all it is nice artwork. I like that they're all fleshed out characters too. Like they're not cardboard cutouts. Miller the Monkey, who's that?
Muller
the Monkey.
That's my own boy Quickfire. But yes,
is that a reference to something though, or just a funny jab?
I think he was just taking a crack at him for climbing up and down the guard tower.
Yeah,
but that's the kind of that's the kind of stuff that Stakeout would zing him with.
It's good to have a little bit of a breakup of seriousness with a few jokes here and there, just so, you know, lighten the mood a little, because, you know, war comics can be quite heavy in nature for obviously obvious reasons, but having a little bit of a joke here or there just to flesh out the characters is good. It's nice to build their character as well, so it's not just straight shoot 'em ups, which has its place. I don't mind a good shoot 'em up, especially in the Western days. Love a good Western. With a name like Quickfire and Stakeout, though, those, you know, they're very good. Like Stakeout, does he do any stakeouts?
You know, we actually never see him do a stakeout, but I'm going to guess that, you know, without having refamiliarized myself with his backstory, that maybe there's a stakeout in the backstory, would be my guess, and that's where he gets the code name from. But as an SAS operative, there's no actual staking out. He is the waterborne or the seaborne specialist. So we do see him, you know, in his silent attack. We see him in his kind of frogman outfit in another particular story. And then just using his kind of general sort of SAS survival skills, because they're almost always out in the wilds, the SAS team. So either whether it's a jungle in South America or the highlands in Scotland, they tend to be somewhere very remote. In fact, one of my favorite stories is where the SAS team go up against Firefly in Operation Stubborn, and that's set in I was going to say it's somewhere in the Middle East. That story takes place, and that is a great story where of kind of cat and mouse, where Firefly is tracking them and basically picking them off one by one.
You've got someone's looking at your toy display. The cool vehicle over your left shoulder.
What have we got over? So this way, I'm guessing here. So that's the. I'll just lean back. That is the. what's it? It's from Star Wars. It's Turbo Tank. I think you've seen it in maybe a Revenge of the Sith, but it made a great appearance in the animated series, The Bad Batch, in the final season of the episodes there. It's a great little vehicle.
Speaking of Stakeout, what a great movie with Emilio Estevez and Richard Dreyfuss. Better than another Stakeout. Still not a bad movie. Maybe a little bad. Not too bad, but Stakeout, great movie. Love that classic. I was wondering where he was going with that for a minute, and I was like, oh, wait, I get it. Did we have any more slides to go through, or are we done with our...
I think we hit the slides. The only slide that I have in there is my, promote the books slide. Right at the very end, where we have our early bird bundle deal is wrapping up on August the 17th, Pacific time, where you can get all 3 books for the price of 2. So that
I've always said that.
Zay's always said that.
Always said that. It was my idea.
That deal comes to an end this Sunday at midnight Pacific time, which is probably Australian time. That might even be Monday Australian time. But for anyone in North America kind of listening to this, it's midnight Pacific time on August the 17th. So you can get volumes 1, 2, and 3. Some of the characters we've talked about tonight, like Space Commander, Stakeout, and Quickfire, they all get lots of page time in volumes 1 and 2. Volume 3 is a Z4-centric volume, so there's we didn't really cover any Z-Force characters tonight, but maybe
we'll have another opportunity.
We'll make it all Z-Force.
Yes. That'll be awesome. Imagine having a guest back for a 4th time, Space Commander. It's unheard of.
It's completely without precedent.
I'm going to have a cap for next time.
Yeah, we'll have to get something going on. Or a yellow cowboy hat.
Yes.
But these, I love the covers on these. I think you've done well. Particularly, I like the trend. So you've got red shadows in the forefront with all the army behind them. That is a great transition over to having them in the background now, getting ever closer. And then if you flip around to the third, that's action. You can imagine and vision that they're now right on the front line, facing towards them. Nice little story that I put together in my own head. But yeah,
I'm now going to take that story and I'm going to use that story every time I talk about these books.
It was well planned out. I knew it. Joe Fan 84, you can get that for a good price right now. The link is in the description, and Gaz also put it in the chat somewhere as well. But it is in the description too. If you want to check it out for your local price too. Check out the conversion for your prices. I'm not really sure how that converts into US.
That is about, in US dollars, the price per book, when you break it down, it's about $53 per book. That's how that breaks down. If you're over in Britain, it works about £41-42 per book with that bundle deal. So that is and these books are big books. They're much larger than your typical trade paperback releases. So they're large, they're oversized, they're quite heavy. But so that early bird bundle price is brilliant. You can still pre-order after August 17th. But
of course,
3 for 2 deal just won't be available after that time.
This is the early bird special. The name is in the description. Early bird. If you want a bundled deal, this is your best way to do it before Monday. They will still be available. TJC's committed to getting them. He'll unfortunately be after the deal. Are you heading back to Joe Fest next year?
I am definitely going back to Joe Fest next year. In fact, I booked my hotel already.
Oh, so perfect.
Hotel is booked. So the hotel, I think they announced that on Facebook there, whatever, about a month ago. So I just went straight in and booked my room. So I'll be booking the flights now later in the year.
Gaz and I are hoping to be there for the next Joe Fest. We're doing, fingers crossed, the plan's going to be that we're going to Canada for RonCon, and then we're going to, like the Muppets, we're going to move it right along in a bus with our good friend Adam from Go Figure and whoever else we pick along the way, and hopefully convoy through the border legally across the border into the States. And we're hoping everything crossed that we'll be there for the next one. So the first round's on me, Brian, if I make it that way.
Yes, that's awesome. Oh, can't wait.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. We're going to Space Commander's going to jump. What do they call that? What's the jumping style from the space?
The orbital skydive.
Orbital skydive down, and he's going to meet us there. I've been talking to Spacey about it. I was like, Spacey, what's it going to take to get you there?
I'd love to go just to hang out with my mates, you know. But
yes,
we'll have to see what's going on. It's cost a fair bit of money to run a space station, so
yeah, fair enough.
We'll see if I got enough coppers left over. I'll see if I can come over.
We'll see how we go. We'll see what we can do for you, Space Commander. I reckon a few of our buddies might chip in if it's a possibility. If it's a possibility, Space Commander, that you can go, I think there's a way that we can make it happen.
Oh, you don't want to do that.
I definitely do.
Space Commander, just got to say, I would love it if you could make it over as well. And I think we could have a great kind of Irish, UK, Aussie, North American contingent. Just super show.
They'd kick us out of the pub, wouldn't they?
It'd be like a proper action force gathering. It'd be so international. So
yeah,
we'll all bring our hats. But I'm down, Space Commander. We're going to figure this thing out, I reckon. And then maybe we could try and get in a little special promotion for incoming transmission altogether in person. Could you imagine?
Ooh.
We'll figure it out. We're almost at the 2-hour mark, guys.
I was going to say one last thing about that deal just before we wrap it up. The early bird bundle deal ends August 17th. 3 books for the price of 2, and it is better than Vegemite on toast.
Oh, there you go. Full force. Don't sleep on these. They're going to be well worth the bundle. And we've got. Now, I know we don't want to talk too much what's going down the pipeline, but you've got 3 books here. We may see 4, 5, and 6.
Well, the ambition is certainly there to keep going, but right now the focus is just on getting these 3 volumes out. So in terms of our timeline, we're still on track to get everything start shipping in December. So we'd be hopeful that people will get their books in time for Christmas. But my deadline to go to print is in September. I'm on track to meet that deadline. So once I meet that deadline, then it's working with the print partner to get everything kind of produced, packed, delivered to our fulfillment centers in Ireland and in North America. And then we start shipping.
All right. Joe fans in. You get paid Friday. The race to the finish. But again, no pressure because they are still available to pre-order after the early bird bundle deal. But this is just the best deal to get at the moment. All 3 books. And I don't know if I've mentioned it, but you can actually get 3 books for the price of 2. As a tremendous deal. You're giving a book away. Which one's the free one?
Whichever one you want.
All right, with that, fellas, thanks, Brian, for hanging out. I'd like to do it again in a couple of weeks if you want. Yes. I don't want to keep you away from your deadline, but if we can have a look at some Z-Force guys, that'd be cool.
Oh, yeah. I'd love that.
Space Commander, always a pleasure. Thank you for peddling the space station and keeping us safe. I won't play the funeral song. Oh, man, I felt so bad. So we played the classic Space Commander song, and then I put poor Brian through the whole video of the Star Trek funeral scene of Space Commander. And I was like, that's too far. But I will play the good old classic song of Space Commander without the funeral part on it for the outro. But Brian, thanks again for hanging out with us, buddy. Everyone in the chat, go check out the link in the description. Pre-order now. It's a good deal. I'm going to get in on it. And get some books I can bring with me to Joe Fest to get them signed by Brian himself. And then we'll get shit-faced at the pub with Space Commander.
Hey!
All right, thanks everybody. We'll see you on the next one. Full force and blood for the Baron. And Yojo. Goodbye. Play the video.
Space Commander. 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 Space Commander.